God is turning everything in your favor. Your time has come. Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in every life when the tides begin to turn, when what was once working against you suddenly begins to work for you. You may not see it yet, but something divine has been shifting behind the scenes. The waiting, the praying, the sleepless nights, the silent tears, none of it was in vain. Every closed door, every disappointment, every detour was not to destroy you, but to prepare you, because now your time has come. You see, life is not random. There is a divine order to everything. Every season has its purpose. The drought before the rain, the night before the dawn, the struggle before the breakthrough. And while you may have walked through a season that tested your strength, your faith, and your patience, the same God who allowed that season is now declaring a new one over your life. The winds are shifting in your favor. The things that once seemed immovable are beginning to move. The burdens that once felt too heavy are being lifted. What was once withheld from you is being released. For too long, you've had to believe without seeing, trust without understanding, and hold on when it felt easier to let go. But I tell you today, every prayer you whispered when no one was listening has reached the throne of heaven. Every tear that fell was noticed. Every moment you stayed faithful when it made no sense has been recorded. And now, divine justice is unfolding in your story. God is turning everything in your favor. There's a reason you couldn't give up. There's a reason you kept getting back up when life knocked you down. Deep within your spirit, something kept telling you, don't quit. Something greater is coming. That was not wishful thinking. That was the voice of destiny speaking to your heart. You were never forgotten. You were being positioned. This is not just another season. This is the season, the one you prayed for, the one heaven prepared for you while you were in the shadows. You are about to witness divine reversals, unexpected blessings, and miraculous breakthroughs that will make you say, only God could have done this. So lift your head high. Shake off the residue of disappointment. Stand firm in your faith, because the same power that raised you up before will raise you again. You are stepping into divine timing, where everything aligns effortlessly, and what once seemed impossible becomes your new reality. Ladies and gentlemen, I declare to you today with unwavering confidence, God is turning everything in your favor, and your time has come, or your time has come. What once worked against you is now working for you. The very forces that seem to push you down are now the same ones lifting you higher. Life has a divine rhythm, and though at times it may feel chaotic, behind every disruption is perfect order. The moments that appeared to be setbacks were actually sacred steps in disguise, steps toward your destined breakthrough. You were never being punished, you were being positioned. You were not being rejected, you were being redirected toward something greater, something aligned with your purpose. When God begins to turn things in your favor, He doesn't always announce it with trumpets and lightning. It happens subtly at first. You'll begin to notice that what used to frustrate you no longer has power over your peace. Situations that once triggered anxiety begin to feel different. People who once drained your energy fade from your circle, not because you forced them out, but because they no longer fit where you are going. The shift is not only external, it starts within you. Your inner world transforms first, and the outer world follows. Think back on the times you cried out, asking God why things weren't working, why doors closed, why relationships ended, why opportunities slipped through your hands. You saw loss, heaven saw alignment. You saw endings, God saw beginnings. You were focused on what was falling apart, but He was focused on what was being built. The truth is, the divine can only turn things in your favor once it has removed what does not belong to your future. Sometimes the blessing must be delayed until you are ready to carry it. It's easy to praise God when everything flows smoothly. But true faith is forged in the fire of contradiction. It's when you believe while everything around you screams, it's over, that you activate the greatest spiritual power within you. Every delay, every disappointment was a silent agreement between you and destiny that you would not settle for less than what was written for your life. The resistance was not meant to destroy you. It was meant to refine you. What you perceived as an obstacle was actually a divine teacher. Think of Joseph in the pit. Think of David in the wilderness. Think of Esther before the king's court. Each of them faced seasons where everything seemed to move against them. Yet those very struggles carried them into divine favor. The pit led Joseph to the palace. The wilderness trained David for kingship. The risk made Esther a deliverer for her people. What was meant for harm turned into holy transformation. The same God who turned their trials into triumphs is working the same pattern in your life. The law of reversal is one of God's greatest mysteries. It takes what seems broken and turns it into brilliance. The stone that the builders rejected becomes the cornerstone. The wound becomes wisdom. The betrayal becomes a bridge. The suffering becomes strength. It is as if God takes the script that life wrote against you and flips it to reveal the blessing hidden underneath. What once worked against you has now become the foundation of your victory. There are people who left your life, and at the time it broke you. But now you can see, had they stayed, they would have blocked your growth. There are jobs you lost that felt like failure, yet now you realize they were divine exits towards something greater. There are moments when you thought you were falling apart, but truly you were falling into place. Every heartbreak, every delay, every detour was divine strategy. God has a way of using even the things that were meant to harm you. The pain that was designed to destroy you becomes the very thing that deepens your faith. What once felt like opposition becomes an instrument of transformation. The enemy's plan backfires every single time because God never loses control of the narrative. When the storm hits, he does not panic. He uses it to clear the path ahead. Many people give up right before this divine reversal happens. They quit in the pit, never realizing the palace is next. But if you can endure the confusion, if you can hold your faith steady in the waiting, you will witness the shift. Suddenly, everything that resisted you will begin to assist you. The same situation that once made you cry will now make you smile because you will see how it all connected perfectly. Your pain has been your preparation. Your loss has been your lesson. Your waiting has been your weapon. You have been walking through divine calibration, not chaos. You are not behind. You are right on schedule. What God is doing now is turning every now into a redirection, every delay into protection, and every setback into momentum. Imagine a bow being pulled back. The tension is uncomfortable, but the greater the pullback, the farther the arrow will fly. That's exactly what has been happening in your life. The pressure you've been under was never meant to destroy you. It was preparing to launch you. The resistance was the proof of your potential. You are about to be propelled forward by the very tension that once held you still. The divine reversal is a law that cannot fail. When it activates, things start to accelerate beyond your understanding. Suddenly, opportunities you didn't chase begin to chase you. People who overlooked you now seek your presence. Doors that were locked open as if by invisible hands. What once worked against you begins to cooperate with your destiny. It's not luck. It's divine order restoring balance to your life. This is the season where you'll begin to see the meaning behind the madness, where confusion gives way to clarity, where every unanswered question starts finding resolution. You'll look back and realize that if one thing had gone differently, you wouldn't be where you are now. The timing, the trials, the tears, all of it was divinely designed. And this is how you know the shift has begun. Peace returns before the evidence does. You'll feel lighter, more sure, more aligned. You'll sense that something unseen is moving in your favor. It's not a coincidence, it's confirmation. You are no longer walking against the current. You're flowing with divine purpose. So don't regret the past. Don't curse the seasons that broke you. They were the birthplace of your power. The same winds that once battered you are now carrying you forward. The same waters that once threatened to drown you are now lifting you higher. You are being elevated by everything that was once against you. What was working against you is now your ally. The pain taught you perseverance. The betrayal taught you discernment. The loss taught you gratitude. The silence taught you faith. Everything that once opposed you has become a teacher, a builder, a silent partner in your transformation. God wastes nothing. Every fragment is part of his masterpiece. And now, as the wheel turns, you will see what heaven has been crafting all along. The pit was never your destination. It was the path. The storm was never meant to sink you. It was sent to steer you. The fire was never to burn you. It was meant to refine you. Everything that once worked against you has now joined forces to push you toward destiny. The divine reversal is complete, and the shift is already unfolding. The waiting season was never a wasted season. It was a divine classroom, shaping you into the vessel capable of carrying the weight of the blessing that is now on its way. So many people despise the waiting, believing that stillness means stagnation, but that's not the truth. In God's design, waiting is never empty. It's the hidden place where your faith matures, where your roots deepen, where your spirit learns to rest when nothing makes sense. The silence you thought was abandonment was actually preparation, a sacred pause where heaven rearranged everything concerning your destiny. You prayed for things that didn't come when you expected them, and it frustrated you. You saw others advancing, succeeding, celebrating, while you were left in the quiet space of becoming. But what you didn't realize is that God was preparing you for more than what you asked for. He wasn't just answering your prayers, He was enlarging your capacity to receive them. The waiting was not about denial, it was about divine timing. If the blessing had come too soon, it might have crushed you. But now, after all you've endured, you're strong enough to carry what's coming next. In the hidden season, God refines motives. He removes what doesn't belong. He teaches you to trust Him without needing proof. When everything seems delayed, He's working beneath the surface, pulling weeds of doubt, trimming branches of fear, and cultivating in you the kind of faith that cannot be shaken. That's why the waiting feels uncomfortable, because it's stretching you. It's expanding you from who you were into who you're destined to be. Every unanswered prayer, every closed door, every silent night was heaven saying, "Not yet. I'm building something in you." There is something sacred about being hidden. When God hides you, it's not punishment, it's protection. He hides you from premature exposure, from the wrong connections, from environments that would damage your growth. Just like a seed in the soil, you were planted, not buried. The darkness wasn't death, it was development. The seed doesn't see the sunlight right away, but something powerful is happening underground. Roots are forming, strength is building, identity is taking shape. And when the right season arrives, that seed will break through the surface effortlessly because it was prepared in secret. This is why you couldn't skip the process. You may have tried to push doors open, but they stayed shut, not because you weren't worthy, but because you were still in training. God was developing in you the patience and discipline that blessing requires. The waiting season is a furnace of faith. It burns away pride, impatience, and fear, leaving only pure trust. And once your heart is aligned, the very things you prayed for begin to find you naturally, without force or struggle. You learned things in the waiting that success could never teach. You learned how to hear God's voice when there was no applause. You discovered peace without validation, strength without recognition, faith without evidence. You became rooted. And that's why what's coming next will not be easily shaken. God doesn't build on unstable ground. The waiting was His way of stabilizing your foundation. Sometimes, when nothing seems to be happening, everything is happening. The doors that appear closed are only waiting for the right moment to swing open. God doesn't operate on our calendar. He operates on divine timing. There's a rhythm to your destiny, and every delay was sensing you with it. The waiting aligned your steps, ensuring that when the breakthrough comes, you'll be standing exactly where you need to be, mature, grounded, and ready. Many lose faith in this phase because they mistake stillness for silence and silence for absence. But God is never absent. The same God who spoke creation into being is still speaking in whispers. He hides behind delays because that's where He strengthens your spiritual ears. If He had given you everything too quickly, you would have depended on blessings instead of Him. Waiting teaches you to trust the giver more than the gift. There were moments you felt invisible, forgotten, overlooked. But that invisibility was divine incubation. God kept you out of sight because what He was forming in you couldn't be exposed prematurely. The world celebrates visibility, but heaven values maturity. You had to grow roots before you could bear fruit. God's process is not rushed. He takes His time because the masterpiece He's crafting is eternal. Every great calling carries a hidden season. Moses was hidden in the desert. Joseph was hidden in a prison. David was hidden in fields. Jesus Himself was hidden for 30 years before His public ministry began. The greater the assignment, the longer the preparation. You are not behind, you are being refined. The waiting was equipping you with divine wisdom, an inner strength that cannot be taught in comfort. During that quiet time, God tested your obedience. Would you still serve when no one saw you? Would you still believe when nothing seemed to change? Would you still praise Him even when promises seemed delayed? Those were not wasted moments. They were divine tests shaping your spiritual maturity. Each act of faith in the unseen realm built your spiritual authority in the visible one. The waiting season also exposes attachments, the things you thought you needed but didn't. It strips away dependency on people, validation, and outcomes. It forces you to find sufficiency in God alone. And once you find that place of contentment, where you no longer chase blessings but rest in divine alignment, the very blessings you once chased begin to chase you. That's the mystery of divine timing. When you're ready internally, manifestation happens effortlessly externally. So many people pray for acceleration, not realizing that acceleration without preparation leads to collapse. God's pace is not slow, it's strategic. He delays only to strengthen. He withholds only to protect. He waits until your character matches your calling. Then what once took years suddenly happens in moments. The favor that was forming behind the scenes bursts forth like light after a long night, unstoppable and undeniable. The waiting season purified your faith. It taught you to worship without reason, to hope without evidence, and to love without reward. That kind of faith is unbreakable. That's why you're still standing. Others may have given up, but you endured, and now you carry the fragrance of endurance, the mark of someone who trusted when it made no sense. Heaven honors that. Now you'll understand why you had to wait. The connections, opportunities, and blessings that are about to align in your life couldn't have met you back then. You weren't in the right posture. But now you are. The doors will open easily because you are ready to walk through them with wisdom and grace. What used to frustrate you will now make sense. The delay was never denial, it was divine design. Everything you've been through was preparing you for what's being released now. The waiting season is closing and a new rhythm is emerging. You'll move with more clarity, confidence, and authority because you've learned to move in alignment with divine timing, not human urgency. You no longer need to chase, you attract. You no longer need to force, you flow. The waiting season was a womb, not a prison. It held you until the right time for your unveiling. And now, everything you become in that secret place, the strength, the patience, the faith, the wisdom, will manifest outwardly as favor, opportunity, and expansion. You were not waiting for something to happen. Something was waiting for you to become ready. And now you are. Divine favor doesn't need human approval. When God decides to bless you, he does not consult anyone about it. No opinion, no rumor, no limitation can stop what heaven has already decreed. The favor of God is not dependent on who supports you or who stands against you. It flows directly from the throne of grace, bypassing human permission. What people think about you is irrelevant when God has chosen to elevate you. When favor locates you, the same mouths that criticized you will have to testify about the goodness of God in your life. Too often, we wait for validation before moving forward, waiting for someone to tell us we are qualified, ready, or worthy. But divine favor is not something that can be earned through merit or human applause. It is a gift. It rests upon those who dare to believe that God can use them even when others see flaws. The world promotes competition, comparison, and status, but heaven promotes obedience, humility, and faith. When God's favor marks you, it will lift you from the back of the line to the front without explanation. You may have been overlooked, underestimated, or rejected, but none of that disqualifies you from what God has planned. In fact, that's exactly who he loves to use, the ones others disregard. He chooses the forgotten to confound the proud. He anoints the least expected so that when the breakthrough happens, no one can claim the glory but him. That's how favor works. It flips expectations and breaks human rules. The job you thought you'd never get, the opportunity that seemed impossible, the relationship that appeared out of reach. When it's time, favor will bring them to you effortlessly. Divine favor often looks unfair to the natural mind. People will wonder how you keep rising despite opposition. They'll question how you accomplish so much with so little. But that's what favor does. It multiplies what you have and positions you beyond human calculation. It creates outcomes that don't make sense on paper. Where others need credentials, favor opens doors through character. Where others depend on connections, favor makes heaven your source. You can't explain it logically because it's spiritual. And what is spiritual will always confound the natural. Many people try to fit into systems, groups, and environments that are not meant to carry their anointing. They crave acceptance from those who were never assigned to understand them. But when God has marked you for divine favor, you must release the need for approval. Some people will never celebrate you because your light exposes their insecurity. They will sense your calling even before you do, and that will unsettle them. But don't shrink to make them comfortable. The favor on your life is not arrogance, it's assignment. You were chosen to stand out, not blend in. When favor begins to operate, it changes how you walk, how you speak, how you move through life. You stop begging for doors to open because you understand that the right doors will open automatically when it's your time. You stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop trying to convince others of your worth because the God who sent you already approved your mission. That approval outweighs every rejection. Favor can make what took others years happen for you in months. It can turn one conversation into a lifetime opportunity. It can cause resources to find you without striving. It's not that you're better than anyone else. It's that God's timing for your life has arrived. And when divine timing and divine favor meet, acceleration takes place. You won't have to chase. You'll be chosen. Look at Joseph. His brothers hated him, sold him, and tried to erase his destiny. Yet the very path of betrayal led him to Egypt, where favor found him. In every environment, the pit, Potiphar's house, the prison, favor followed him. No system could suppress what was on his life. Even when forgotten by men, heaven remembered him. And in one day, God turned his story from prisoner to ruler. That's what divine favor does. It defies human logic and compresses time. Think of Esther, an orphan girl from an exiled nation, chosen to be queen. She didn't have royal lineage, but she had divine favor. One moment of favor with the king positioned her to save an entire people. That's the supernatural power of favor. It doesn't just bless you, it blesses others through you. When favor rests on your life, it creates ripples of transformation far beyond your imagination. When you walk in favor, understand that not everyone will celebrate it. Some will try to discredit your progress, saying it's luck or coincidence. Others will envy it because they don't understand that your glow comes from grace. But you don't have to explain divine favor. It speaks for itself. The fruit of your life will prove what God has done. Those who doubted you will witness your elevation and have no choice but to acknowledge that it was the hand of God. Sometimes divine favor hides you until the right moment. It keeps you in obscurity to protect you from exposure before maturity. Then suddenly, in an instant, it brings you into visibility. People will call it overnight success, but you'll know it was years of hidden preparation meeting divine timing. That's why you must never resent your hidden season. It's the proving ground for favor. Divine favor also comes with divine responsibility. It's not given for status, but for service. God doesn't favor you to make you famous. He favors you to make you fruitful. The blessings he entrusts you with are meant to impact others. Favor flows through you, not just to you. The more you pour into others, the stronger it flows. That's why favor and humility walk hand in hand. One sustains the other. Don't be surprised if people who once ignored you suddenly want to connect when favor begins to manifest. Don't take it personally. Favor changes how others perceive you. But stay grounded. Remember that the same God who elevated you can sustain you. Your validation must continue to come from heaven, not applause. Sometimes, favor will require you to step into places where you feel unqualified. You'll wonder why you were chosen. But that's the point. Favor chooses the unlikely. You may not have the experience, but you have the grace. You may not have the connections, but you have divine backing. When you walk through doors opened by God, his presence will qualify you where credentials cannot. Understand this truth deeply. When favor is on your life, no one can block it, delay it, or reverse it. They may try to oppose you, but their opposition becomes fuel for your promotion. God will even use your critics to advertise your blessing. What they meant for harm, he will use for good. Favor has a way of turning resistance into revelation. The day will come when everything makes sense. You'll look back at all the rejection, all the times you weren't chosen, and you'll thank God it happened. Because had they approved you prematurely, you would have settled for less than divine favor intended. The closed doors were not rejection. They were protection from misaligned opportunities. So stand firm in confidence. You don't need to prove your worth to anyone. You don't need permission to step into what God has already declared as yours. Divine favor is already operating on your behalf, moving mountains, softening hearts, and opening doors that were never meant to stay closed. Human approval is fleeting, but divine favor is eternal. And when heaven approves you, earth has no choice but to respond. You are moving from test to testimony. The season of trial that once felt endless is now transforming into revelation. Every storm you endured, every valley you walked through, and every sleepless night that tried to break you was a necessary chapter in your spiritual awakening. What once felt like punishment was preparation. The fire you faced wasn't meant to consume you. It was meant to purify you. The very battles that seemed to tear you apart were secretly building your faith, shaping your endurance, and deepening your understanding of divine power. It's easy to see God's hand in blessings, but true maturity comes when you can see his hand even in brokenness. The test was never about what you lost. It was about what you gained through the loss. Pain has a way of exposing what you truly believe. When nothing makes sense and you still choose to trust, that's when faith becomes real. The test reveals what cannot be shaken. It strips away false strength, illusions of control, and shallow faith, leaving behind something authentic, a faith that has been proven in fire. Every test you faced carried hidden instruction. Every disappointment whispered wisdom that comfort could never teach. Tests reveal not only the depth of your belief, but also the truth of God's faithfulness. You prayed for strength, and God sent situations that required it. You prayed for patience, and he allowed delays. You prayed for wisdom, and he brought you through confusion until clarity emerged. What you called opposition was often the very answer to your prayer. When God tests you, he does not test to destroy, he tests to reveal. Just as gold must be refined in fire to shine, your character and calling were refined through struggle. You can't lead others through pain you've never felt. You can't speak of faith if you've never had to hold on in the dark. The tests were building credibility in your spirit, a deep knowing that no matter what happens, God remains faithful. That's why some of your greatest strength was born in your weakest moments. The process is never easy. There were days you questioned everything, your purpose, your worth, even God's plan. You wondered if the struggle would ever end. Yet somehow, even in exhaustion, you didn't give up. That was not your strength alone. That was grace carrying you when you couldn't carry yourself. Grace doesn't remove the test, it gives you endurance to pass it. Every test carries an expiration date. The moment you learn what the test came to teach, it begins to lose its power. And now, you are stepping into a new phase where the lessons are bearing fruit. The strength you gained through adversity will now sustain your elevation. The wisdom you received in pain will now guide your purpose. The faith you developed in silence will now speak loudly through your testimony. There were moments when you thought the test was evidence that God had left you. But now you can see He was there all along, teaching you how to stand even when the ground beneath you trembled. He allowed the storm so you could learn to command peace from within. You were not abandoned in the fire. You were anointed in it. Tests have a way of stripping away pride. They remind us that we are not in control and that our strength alone is never enough. They humble us into dependence on divine power. You learn to pray differently, to listen deeper, to surrender completely. The same hands that broke were the hands that were later lifted in praise. What once brought you to your knees in pain will now bring you to your knees in gratitude. Many people mistake the testing season for failure, but the truth is, testing is the highest sign of divine trust. God only tests those He intends to promote. The greater the assignment, the greater the refining. If you felt the pressure was unbearable, it's because your destiny carries weight. You were never being punished. You were being prepared for promotion. The test also revealed who was truly for you. In moments of difficulty, pretenders disappear. People who were comfortable during your rise couldn't handle your refining. That was divine separation, not rejection. God was clearing your path so that when testimony time comes, no one else could take the credit. Those who walked away during the test will have to witness your testimony from afar. The purpose of the test was to change your perception. You no longer see loss as defeat. You see it as redirection. You no longer see waiting as wasted time. You see it as training. You no longer see obstacles as barriers. You see them as invitations to rise. That's transformation. The outer circumstances didn't change first. Your inner awareness did. And once that shift happens, everything else follows. There were times you didn't understand why things were so hard, but looking back, you can see that the test was pushing you into your authentic self. It forced you to stop pretending, to stop performing, and to discover who you really are when everything else is stripped away. That's why your testimony carries power. It's born out of truth, not theory. You've learned to thank God not only for the open doors, but also for the closed ones. You've learned that sometimes He protects you by withholding what you thought you wanted. You've learned that what feels like delay is often divine redirection. You've learned that the storm was not sent to destroy. You were to wash away everything that couldn't go with you into the next season. Now, as you stand on the other side, you see that the same fire that tried to burn you ended up refining you. The same pit that tried to bury you became the foundation of your faith. The same tears that once symbolized sorrow have become seeds of joy. You no longer see trials as enemies, but as sacred teachers. The test was never meant to prove God's faithfulness to you. It was meant to prove your faithfulness to Him. Every great testimony is written in the language of struggle. It's easy to admire someone's glory, but behind every victory is a story, one filled with moments of doubt, pain, and perseverance. What people will see in your life now is the finished product, but you'll always remember the process. You remember how it felt to stand alone, to pray when answers didn't come, to smile through tears. That memory will keep you humble, grounded, and grateful. Your scars are not symbols of shame. They are signatures of survival. They remind you that you walked through the fire and made it out, refined, not ruined. Each scar carries a story of grace, proof that what was meant to destroy you only made you stronger. And now your story will become someone else's survival guide. You'll speak from a place of experience, not theory. You'll carry healing in your words because they were forged in pain. This is the beauty of divine transformation. The test doesn't just end, it evolves into testimony. The very thing you thought would break you becomes the foundation for your purpose. You no longer run from difficulty because you understand it's part of your design. You've been tried, and now you're trusted. You've been broken, and now you're built. You've been tested, and now you're ready to testify. Every trial was preparing your voice. Every delay was sharpening your discernment. And every hardship was expanding your heart. The test has served its purpose. You are no longer who you were before the fire. You are wiser, deeper, stronger, and spiritually anchored. What once brought you to your knees in pain now brings you to your feet in power. You've crossed the threshold. The test has turned into testimony. And as you begin to walk in this new chapter, everything you've endured will now work together as a divine narrative of grace. What once felt like suffering has become sacred, a living story of what happens when faith outlasts the fire. There is a moment when heaven whispers your name and declares, now. That moment is sacred. It cannot be earned, rushed, or manipulated. It is appointed. You may have waited years for it, prayed through storms for it, endured rejection, delay, and uncertainty, but when the divine timing arrives, nothing and no one can stand in the way. What seemed to move slowly will suddenly accelerate. What was hidden will be revealed. You will begin to feel an inner pull, a quiet assurance that this is no longer preparation. This is manifestation. You have been tested, refined, and molded for such a time as this. The moment is no longer coming, the moment is here. To walk in your appointed time requires boldness. Many people miss divine opportunities because they hesitate when heaven opens a door. They question whether they are ready, whether they are worthy, or whether they can handle it. But when God calls your name, He has already qualified you. He doesn't choose the perfect. He perfects the chosen. He equips those who say yes, even when they don't feel capable. Your confidence should never come from circumstances, credentials, or approval. It comes from the awareness that the author of time himself has written this chapter for you. To walk timidly when heaven is cheering you on is to dishonor what you've prayed for. So step forward, even trembling, for divine grace will meet you where courage begins. When divine timing arrives, everything accelerates. Delays break, connections align, and the right people show up at the right time. What used to require struggle will now flow with ease because the season has shifted. There is a rhythm to divine favor, and once you step into it, doors begin to open without force. What once drained you will now energize you. What once intimidated you will now inspire you. You are not the same person who started the journey. The waiting has produced wisdom, the pain has built endurance, and the silence has taught you faith. You are prepared not by man, but by God. This appointed time is not just about personal elevation. It's about divine purpose. You were kept hidden because premature exposure would have destroyed what God was building in you. Now that the foundation is firm, you can carry the weight of the blessing. Every lesson, every delay, every tear has prepared you for stewardship, not just success. You are not being promoted to impress people. You are being positioned to impact lives. God elevates His children not for recognition, but for revelation, that through your life, others will see what divine favor looks like. You are becoming a living testimony of what it means to trust when nothing makes sense and to receive when everything suddenly aligns. Bold faith is your key in this season. You can no longer speak from the language of fear or limitation. You must declare boldly what you believe. The atmosphere around you responds to your inner conviction. When you say, "This is my time," it's not arrogance, it's alignment. It's acknowledging what heaven has already decreed. Speak it until your environment recognizes your authority. Act as though it's already done. Move as if the promise has manifested. This is how divine timing meets divine readiness, when faith and action become one. Do not be surprised when those who doubted you begin to watch in awe. The very people who dismissed you will witness the unfolding of your elevation. This is not to shame them, but to glorify God through you. Every misunderstanding, every delay, every betrayal was necessary to build the strength you now carry. You were refined in private so that you could shine in public without pride. Those who once questioned your calling will have no choice but to admit that something supernatural has taken place. What is happening in your life will not make sense to human reasoning. It will be evidence of divine orchestration. There will also be moments in this appointed time where you feel overwhelmed by the magnitude of what's unfolding. The pace may feel fast, the opportunities immense, and the favor unexplainable. In those moments, remember that the same grace that brought you here will sustain you. You are not walking into this season alone. The Spirit that guided you through your waiting will guide you through your winning. Divine timing doesn't just open doors. It provides the wisdom to walk through them. Stay humble, stay prayerful, keep your heart anchored in gratitude, and you will continue to expand without losing your peace. Many people pray for their appointed time, but are unaware that with elevation comes responsibility. Blessings bring visibility, and visibility requires discipline. The more God increases you, the more He expects you to represent His character. You must remain grounded, remembering that every open door is not just a gift, but a trust. Do not let comfort replace calling. Do not let applause silence discernment. Stay close to the presence that promoted you, for that is the only place where clarity flows. Divine timing without divine wisdom leads to distraction, but divine timing rooted in purpose leads to transformation. You may have walked through seasons where everything felt delayed, but divine delays are not denials. They are strategic pauses. God pauses when He's aligning what concerns you. If He had given you what you asked for too soon, it might have overwhelmed you. But now your spirit, your mind, and your environment are ready to handle what's coming. The wait was protection. Now that the pieces are in place, you will see why it had to take this long. The blessing that once seemed far away will arrive suddenly. You will go from not yet to right now. This is your appointed time. Not next year, not someday. Now, heaven has authorized your advancement. The seeds you planted in tears are about to bloom in beauty. The prayers you whispered in the dark are about to echo in manifestation. The years that felt wasted will suddenly make sense. Everything will fall into place effortlessly, and it will feel like a divine current carrying you forward. So walk boldly. Do not hide your light because of old fears or small-minded voices. You are not who you were yesterday. You are walking into the fullness of who you were created to be. The time for preparation is complete. The time for manifestation has begun. God is not just turning things in your favor. He's accelerating them beyond your imagination. You are stepping into divine alignment where purpose meets power, where vision meets visibility, and where faith meets fulfillment. Your time has come not because you forced it, but because heaven declared it. Now rise and walk in the authority of that truth. What was once a promise is now becoming your reality.